most intriguing backup quarterback situations, and you can put it out there however you want. You make the case as to why it's intriguing.
Yeah.
Any of the teams, you get the first pick. Who you got?
I'm going to go with Daniel Jones. I mean, this is his third team, but he's got an opportunity, 1 year, $14 million contract to start for the Colts, obviously, with what Anthony Richardson has done. They knew that Anthony Richardson was going to have this developmental period. He only started 13 games at Florida, but he's 2 years into his NFL career, 17 starts and barely over 50% completion percentage. They've gone 4 years without a playoff berth. This coach, this GM are under pressure to win now, Mike. Are you going to go with Daniel Jones or are you going to go with Anthony Richardson? I think you're going to go with Daniel Jones, who has a little more history about him, who has a better completion percentage, who has done enough to earn a big contract. I think he's going to end up being the starting quarterback for the Colts. And then I guess Anthony Richardson will become intriguing as a backup with the Colts.
Now, see, I would throw challenge flag on even picking Daniel Jones. The Colts generally, but we don't know who the backup is. It's an open competition. Jones hasn't lost it yet. But whoever loses it is going to have a chance to eventually play, because that's the thing about a true quarterback competition on a team that is struggling. The guy who wins the job for week one wins the right to be the first guy benched. And if Richardson wins that job, don't we think at some point in the 2025 season he's going to get tapped on the shoulder for Daniel Jones? But I like the idea that entire situation is full of intrigue, because whoever doesn't win the job may end up winning the job. I'm going to go with the guy who started the show, Jameis Winston, eating W's on the bench in New York, kind of like where Mark Sanchez was once eating hot dogs on the bench. So I think that Winston will be a fan favorite. I think there will be locker room support for Jameis Winston. You have the guy who is the ultimate authentic version of himself as the backup, with the guy who is the ultimate manicured, watch what you say, play the role of a guy who's pretending to be an NFL starting quarterback as the starter. And if Russell Wilson doesn't perform well, and there's reason to believe he won't, there's reason to believe that the Steelers didn't want him around because of the current state of his physical abilities, Winston, who beat Russell Wilson in what Winston calls the most iconic snow game of all time. Narrator, it's not. But it was still pretty damn good, and it was a fun Thursday night in November, and Winston and the Browns out-Steelered the Steelers. The guy he beat that night is number one. I feel like at some point in the 2025 season, we're going to see what Jameis Winston can do. Because remember this, Winston is signed for 2 years. Russell Wilson is signed for 1 year.
Yeah. I didn't know if you would go for Winston or if you would go for Kirk Cousins, because that's obviously a interesting, intriguing situation in Atlanta. Are they going to trade him? Are they not going to trade him? He's obviously the backup in Atlanta. And I asked Raheem Morris, I said, don't you understand where Kirk Cousins is coming from, wanting out? He turns 37 this year. He doesn't have that many years left to play. He hasn't been a full-time backup since early in his career in Washington. This guy wants to play, and he wants to play now. And how's he going to react as a backup quarterback full-time? So to me, that's very intriguing to figure out if he's going to stay there, and if he is, how that role is going to go. And if he's not, if they do trade him, which we all think they eventually will trade him, but if they do, where does he go? Where does he end up competing or being the starting quarterback? I think it's super intriguing right now.
Well, and it's intriguing, primarily because he's a backup who could end up being a starter, because after the draft, and he's reportedly not going to waive his no-trade clause until after the draft, because he doesn't want to have what happened last year happen again this year, where he finds out the hard way on draft night. He's probably not going to be the starter for long. After the draft, there will be, I think, one or two spots where he becomes an obvious candidate to be traded. Browns, Steelers are the two that I'm watching the most carefully. I have a feeling it's going to be the Browns. Reunion with Kevin Stefanski. Not a ridiculously expensive contract, which is important when you've got so many cap dollars tied up in Deshaun Watson. I agree with you. I like that one. I'm going to stay in New Jersey, and I am going to go with Tyrod Taylor as the backup to Justin Fields. Charean, here's another trivia question for you. Is Tyrod Taylor above or below 500 as a starter in the NFL?
He's exactly 500, 28, 28, and 1.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, you have it pulled up, too. You were doing some research on the backup quarterbacks. You're right. He's 28, 28, and 1. Boom. It was a trick question, and she got me. He's exactly 500. He's been around for a long time. We talked about him earlier. He was the guy who was on the bench for 4 years with the Ravens before he became the starting quarterback of the Bills. He's been to the playoffs. And we still don't know what Justin Fields is going to be. And Aaron Glenn, the coach of the Jets, made it clear. Justin Fields is QB1 in pencil. That pencil, most pencils have an eraser on the back end for a reason. And I'm also fascinated by Jordan Travis, the guy who could have been the Heisman winner the year Jaden Daniels won it. He had the hip drop tackle, the serious injury, playing at Florida State. Last year, he didn't play at all, didn't practice at all for the Jets, but he's there under contract for 3 more years. He could make things interesting, too. But that 2-year, $40 million contract Justin Fields signed, once upon a time, that's top of the market. Nowadays, that says placeholder. And it's entirely possible it's Tyrod Taylor who ends up being the quarterback of the Jets at some point this year. All right, one more each.
Yeah, I'm going with those were the top 4 I had. I'm going to go with Zach Wilson with the Dolphins. He's starting as Tua's backup, but we know Tua's injury history. Zach Wilson's only 25 years old, but yet he's been all over the league now, spent last season in Denver and never even played a down. I think he'll get an opportunity to play this season at some point for the Dolphins based on Tua's injury history, 23 touchdowns, 25 interceptions in his career. But Jets starting quarterbacks, as we know, have gone on to other places and have been better. So this is a guy who's going to have an opportunity probably to play and be better than what he was with the Jets.
I would go with the Vikings here, but there is no backup quarterback in Minnesota for now. Brett Rippon is not going to be number 2. We don't know who number 2 is going to be. Number 2 is either going to be a Carson Wentz or a Joe Flacco or possibly J.J. McCarthy if they decide to circle back to Aaron Rodgers and make him the starter. I'll go San Francisco. And I say that because Mac Jones, and Michael Hawley and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, he thinks Mac Jones is eventually going to drive Kyle Shanahan crazy. I still believe Mac Jones is walking through the door with a chip on his shoulder and with a plan to show everyone he's better than Brock Purdy. It might not matter by then because it seems like the 49ers are ready to open the vault for Brock Purdy, and it sounds like they're inclined to overpay Brock Purdy. But Mac Jones is not going in there to be Brock Purdy's caddy. He's going in there to show everyone that he can be better than Brock Purdy. And I just think that it creates an awkward dynamic potentially. And if they don't work out this long-term contract, I mean, if Purdy's people want significantly more than $50 million a year and the 49ers wake up out of this trance that they seem to be in where they by all appearances are ready to give him everything he wants, if they say, no, you know what, that Geno Smith extension kind of did it for us. They're only paying him $37.5 million a year. Why are we paying you more than $40 million a year if Geno Smith's only getting $37.5 million per year in new money average? It just makes for a potentially awkward and very intriguing situation if Purdy ultimately has to play one more year at $5.3 million, and you've got Mac Jones walking through the door intent, Charean, on showing that maybe he's the better option. And remember, he's the guy that everybody thought Kyle Shanahan wanted when they traded up to number 3 4 years ago.
Well, and he has a Pro Bowl, Mike. He's played well enough to go to the Pro Bowl, and I realize a lot of people go to the Pro Bowl, but not everybody's gone to the Pro Bowl, and he's been there once. So he's shown something, and then whatever happened to him in New England happened to him in New England, and now here he is on his 3rd team. But sometimes these guys just need to find the right situation, and Kyle Shanahan could be the right situation for him.
Well, and look, Mac Jones gets plenty of criticism, and some of it may be deserved, but the reality is Bill Belichick made one of the single dumbest coaching decisions, macro that we've ever seen by putting Matt Patricia and Joe Judge in charge of the offense in 2022. Yeah. And I remember sitting in this chair saying, if any other coach did this, we would ask legitimately, has he lost his mind? But Belichick gets a pass because he's Belichick. It was stupid. It was asinine. It was ridiculous. And it undermines, to a certain extent, his brilliance as a coach, that he's the one that thought it would be a good idea to put Matt Patricia and Joe Judge in charge of the offense. And look at what happened to Mac Jones' career. And I give Mac Jones credit because he was one of the only Patriots who wasn't hardwired to do everything and say everything that Belichick wants him to do and say. He pushed back, and there were issues internally. And I think it created some problems, and some of those problems may have fueled the ultimate departure of Bill Belichick as head coach of the team. But Mac Jones stood up for himself when he was getting jerked around, and he definitely got jerked around by Bill Belichick by putting two guys who should not have been in charge of the offense in that spot. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.